Angel is brought to you by LinkedIn. You already know LinkedIn as the world's largest professional network. It's also a better way to find great talent. Go to linkedin.com/angel and get a $50 credit towards your first job post. Terms and conditions apply. And Embroker. The Embroker Startup Program helps startups secure the most important lines of insurance at a lower cost and with less hassle. For guaranteed 10% off on premiums and up to 20% depending on quote, go to embroker.com/angel.
Hey everybody, welcome to Angel, the podcast. This is our third season. Each season we do 10 episodes thanks to our partners for supporting independent media like Angel. You can visit us at angelpodcast.com or you can search for Angel Calacanis on whatever your podcast player is and try to find us there. Sometimes, if you do that, some of these directories are filled with podcasts about people who believe that they're angels walking amongst us. So somewhere between all the Christian and Catholic angel podcasts is this podcast, Angel, about angel investors. This podcast is a complement to the book I wrote, Angel. You can go buy that book for 10 or 20 bucks and listen to it on audible.com/twist. You get it for free. And in that book, I talk about my strategies for investing in companies. But I am not the only successful investor, far from it, here in the Silicon Valley. And in this podcast, we bring together 10 investors for each season. And the investors we bring together are the ones who have had great success and who I've collaborated with in many cases on investments. Today will be no different. My guest today is Chris Redlitz, and you may remember he was on our podcast because of The Last Mile. The Last Mile is an incredible program here in the Bay Area where he has helped inmates rehabilitate themselves through the lens of entrepreneurship. And I got to visit Chris in his environment. And I was apprehensive, but I went, and it was one of the most important days of my life when I got to see people who made mistakes in life, maybe made some bad decisions, but were trying to turn it around. And I saw in these same people, myself, some bad decisions I'd made in my life. And it really made me consider incarceration, kindness, and entrepreneurship on a different level. And I'm really glad to have him here to talk about The Last Mile, which we've already covered and deserves endless coverage, but to talk about his career as an angel investor. Welcome back to the program, Chris Redlitz.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
How are things? I don't want to make this about The Last Mile, but it is such an amazing program. Describe for people in broad strokes what the program is and what it's accomplished.
Sure. We've been doing it for about 10 years. It originally started in San Quentin as an entrepreneurship program. And it was an experiment really for us. I was never involved in any sort of prison reform before that. Matter of fact, I never even was in a prison prior to my first experience going into San Quentin. I was invited in there to do a talk to some men about entrepreneurship as a favor to a friend. And I thought that would be a one-time experience. I would do my thing, leave, and check the sort of social giving box, and that would be it. But that experience, that evening, I saw in this room full of men the same look that I see in entrepreneurs. These guys really had the desire to create a better life after they served their time. And from seeing entrepreneurs, it's almost like this blink experience, like, wow.
Yep.
And I left that night and I went home and I told my wife, who's my business partner, I said, Beverly, I think we can do something in San Quentin. I think we can build a technology incubator in San Quentin. She said, Chris, no effing way am I going into prison.
Yeah.
But she was really resistant. But I said, no, you need to see what I saw.
Yeah.
And we went back in about a month later, started doing homework about recidivism, cost of incarceration. And we started a little program, just the two of us, went in 2 nights a week for almost a year, and thought we'd just help a few of these guys that I met evolve their businesses, and maybe when they got out, they could be entrepreneurs.
Got it.
That's how it started, and it's come a long way since then.
How is it now in San Quentin? How is it going over there? Because that's where I went to speak.
You did.
And it was transformative for me just on a human level. So I thank you for that. Yeah. I was terrified, as you know.
I know you were.
Because I was like, I have watched reality shows about prison. Like, it's brutal. People get murdered. There's just horrible things that can happen. And it is not that, but there is that.
There is that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was about a year and a half between the first time I invited you and when you
Yeah,
actually...
I took my time because I was like, you know what? If I'm going to check the box
Yeah.
for social giving,
Yeah.
like maybe I'll just do something like homeless or,
Yeah.
girls who code, whatever. So there are ones that are easier
Sure.
to, I think, engage with. That's why I respect you greatly for what you did with the last mile, because it's the last group of people that you think you want to help.
Right.
And then it turns out, maybe not so quick. And we had this great prison reform thing that occurred in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Just broad strokes. I know you're not like a legislator, but this seemed to have bipartisan approval. Are we thinking about incarceration in a more logical, humanistic, and effective way in America now? And what is the impact of this prison reform bill?
I think it's what we've seen over the last 10 years is the awareness. And part of what we wanted to do is, just like yourself, you had this preconceived idea of what it was to be incarcerated in the whole environment, and to invite more and more people in to see that.
Yeah.
So I think the awareness across the country has been much more acute. As a result, people are much more receptive to change laws. We had several initiatives in California. Prop 36 is one of those that basically changed the three-strike law. So those that were given life sentences under three strikes could have their cases evaluated and potentially shortened. So I think that's a big deal where the public now is much more aware. The First Step Act that was passed just recently in D.C. is truly a bipartisan issue. It is one of the first and few things we've seen where both parties got together and sort of overwhelmingly voted for this.
Yeah.
And we were very involved. Beverly was back. I think she was there 4 times during this time.
Wow.
So pretty involved in that. We're getting pulled more and more into legislation just because of what we do. And we're going across the country. Now in San Quentin, where you were, we built a tech accelerator, kind of like that prediction 10 years ago actually came true. Now we have 25,000 square feet in San Quentin.
Wow.
We have 6 classrooms, and we're going across the country. We're now in 5 states, 15 classrooms, and our goal is to be in 50 classrooms within the next 5 years. Teaching primarily, we went from entrepreneurship now to teaching coding. So we're teaching
specific skills.
Specific skills. It's about 80-20. It's 80% tech, about 20% soft skills. So the goal is to prepare people for success.
Right.
Which means you can have tech skills, but then not be able to sort of assimilate in a business. So we're trying to do both. And our success rate's been great. Over the last 10 years, we've had 0 recidivism. No one has reoffended. And the national average is close to 60%.
It's amazing. So you have learned through this that our system is inhumane to a great degree. It's largely inhumane. And it's largely ineffective. And that the intractable problem of crime and incarceration is, in fact, not intractable.
Well, sure. I think what I say a lot is many of the people in our program, because we're in men's, women's, and youth facilities now, never had a first chance. We talk a lot about second chances. Yeah. And I'll give you a great example, not to dwell too much, but one of our recent graduate returned citizens, Jason Jones, was in San Quentin. He was in foster care at 8 years old, joined a gang at 11 years old, went to high school, was a great athlete, but basically had no grades. They passed him through because he was a good athlete. He actually had D1 scholarships to play football, but had no grades and couldn't pass the SAT. So he went back to what he knew in gang life and ended up serving 14 years in prison. And Jason today is now one of our instructors at Last Mile. He teaches virtual instruction to our classes across the country. He's an accomplished JavaScript coder. And he also teaches a class at McClymonds High School in Oakland on his own 2 nights a week. He teaches kids in high school. And this guy has totally transformed. And he basically said if it wasn't for the Last Mile, he'd be back dealing drugs or in a gang. So you see that transformation, just giving people a chance, and they will do amazing things.
What does it cost to run the program now? You have full-time employees at this program?
We have close to 30 employees now.
Wow.
We have some phenomenal sponsors and donors. Google is our main sponsor.
Yeah.
Chan Zuckerberg is a big sponsor of ours.
Amazing.
Stand Together, which is another group across the country, is a big sponsor of ours. And we've gotten a lot of either in-kind sponsorship or small sponsorship from many companies. And the thing about that I've really appreciated in the Valley, obviously we get hit a lot about lack of diversity, but almost all the tech companies here have some sort of diversity initiative.
Oh, they do.
And they're really helping us.
They care. Yeah. I mean, people can be very cynical about tech, and for obvious reasons, there are mistakes that have been made.
Yeah.
But diversity is something that people are spending time and money and effort on in a major way here.
Completely. And we're in the midst of that as well. So we
great.
feel very supported. We have a lot of mentors.
What does it cost? Like $100,000 to set one of these up at a prison? What does it cost to run somebody through the program? Like if you were to take the number of people who went through it in a year, if 100 people went through it, it cost $100,000. It's $1,000 to go through the program, $5,000, $10,000.
So there's a startup cost. But as we're going, the number we use, it's around $5,000 per inmate per year.
$5,000 per year.
Yeah. So it's, when you think about it, in California, it costs upwards of $65,000 just to house someone. If you can spend $5,000 to prepare them for successful reentry, that's a bargain.
If you do that for 4 years and you spend $20,000 and it lets you not have them come back for another 10 years?
It won't even take 4 years. I mean, they can be ready earlier than that.
Let's say 2.
Even 2.
10K. For 10K, if 1 out of 10 didn't come back, it would be worth it. But you're saying the statistics are way more. I mean, it would obviously be worth it because that'd be $600,000 over 10 years.
Sure.
Or actually, you would save $600,000 and the 10 would have cost you whatever, $100,000. This is like an obvious win.
It's obvious. Yeah. But again, the system really needs help. So we really believe in public-private partnership. It takes people from the outside who have different perspective and resources. And fortunately, we had some resources to do it ourselves. We made the commitment to self-fund it until we felt like we had the right success metrics to show people. Yeah. So that was a commitment that Beverly and I made. And now we have the government helps fund it as well. But the companies that are funding us,
fantastic.
Like Priscilla and Mark have been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, do me a favor, Jackie. I just realized I haven't donated in a year or two. Can you ask Ashley to ship 10 dimes over to Chris? 10,000 large, 10 large.
Wow.
Listen, it's not a big deal for me to give you $10,000. It's nothing. But awesome. It's 2 years of somebody going through the program. So I just thought it's at least one person. And if anybody is listening and they're an affluent angel investor or venture capitalist, support Chris, please, and ship 10K, 5K, whatever you can afford. But just make a note that I don't forget because I know I donated a couple of years ago, but I really think what you're doing is so important.
Greatly appreciate it.
It's really easy to give a donation to girls who code, but like prisoners and who made mistakes in their lives is a little bit harder. So I just want to just check myself so we do that. Okay, when we get back,
amazing.
Let's talk
Thank
about
you.
Your career. When we get back on Angel the Podcast. Hiring is so hard. You are suffering right now, and I understand that. I'm suffering too. I've got to hire people. I've got 200 portfolio companies. We're all trying to hire talent, and it's a record low unemployment here in America. Well, I have the solution for you. And you are already using this product. It's LinkedIn Jobs. It helps you fill all these open positions you have. 500 million people are active on LinkedIn. You know that. And they come every day to make connections, to grow their careers, to discover new job opportunities. 90% of LinkedIn users, according to a survey, are open to new opportunities, but they are not actively looking. These are called passive job searchers. LinkedIn Jobs gives you access to an entirely different demographic than anywhere else in the world. In fact, we found our director, Sir Charles, and our marketing manager, Maureen, on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is amazing, and you need LinkedIn Jobs to find the right person for your business. You're going to get to target your job promotion. It's going to recommend matches, and it does candidate management. It's a dashboard that lets you track everyone from application to hire, all in one place. And you really need that candidate management so that you have this beautiful, elegant dashboard, and it will track everybody from application to hire so you don't lose any of those premium candidates. LinkedIn Jobs uses knowledge of both hard skills, cloud computing, social media, video productions, and soft skills like collaboration, time management to match you with people who fit your role best. So here's your call to action. It's a really great offer. I can't believe they're doing this. I want you to go to linkedin.com That's super easy. When you type the letter L in your URL, it's going to fill in LinkedIn.com. We all know that because that's the place you visit most. That begins with an L. And then /angel. LinkedIn.com/angel. You know me, I'm an angel investor. You're listening to Angel Podcast. LinkedIn.com/angel, and they will give you $50, a fitty, 50 for free, just for posting your first job. So get that $50, and you do that by going to LinkedIn.com/angel. Terms and conditions, of course, apply. Thank you to LinkedIn for helping us find Sir Charles. He has been a real gem. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey, welcome back to Angel, the podcast. You can visit us at angelpodcast.com. My guest today, Chris Redlitz, is an amazing investor. He's invested in companies, including, and you're not going to believe this, LinkedIn, Twitter, Snapchat, AngelList, Gigster, and Wish. So many amazing startups, and we're going to talk about that. And before the break, I donated $10,000, and Jackie just told me during the break she would like to donate $10,000 as well. She's giving me
Jackie, that
here,
is
Jackie,
awesome.
Jackie, I'll tell you what, Jackie. Here we go. I'm gonna up the stakes here. I'm gonna up the stakes. Okay, here's
on
the
the
stakes.
spot, Jackie.
Jackie, if you get me, Bill Gates. Okay. Airbnb, either of the two founders.
Is this
Jack from Twitter? Okay. Who else we haven't had on? We really need to have on. Elon. Okay.
Is this one of all of those or all of those?
Any of those. Oh, and also Sundar from Google would be a good get, and Satya from Microsoft would be a good get. I think I listed 6 or 7.
Yes. One of those. You said one of those.
Any of those.
Okay.
For each one of those that you get, I will give another $5,000.
Jackie,
okay?
we need
your name, Jackie. Your donation.
Jackie, we're going to talk later. I think I can.
Okay, I think I just rattled off 7 names. That's
I can
a total
help you
of
with
$35,000. Jackie, you now have a bounty program. $5,000 per head. You get them. We ship $5,000. Okay.
She's going to be even more than the award-winning producer. She's going to be the award-producing funder.
I put some bounties out there. $5,000.
Nice.
So you've been investing for over a decade, I think.
Well, longer than that. I started angel investing in the mid-90s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me about your first couple of angel investments in the 90s, and what was it like to be an angel investor? What were the check sizes? What were the valuations? What were the companies?
The valuations were a lot different then. There were basically very few investors. Ron Conway was the man, and it was kind of everybody else. But I was actually running a company in 97, and my partner at PwC called me and said, I've got this young guy in my office. He's here from Salt Lake City. Would you take him to lunch? Because I have no idea what to do with him. And nobody in Silicon Valley really wants to talk to anybody outside of Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So I took him to lunch. He pitched me his business. One of the few times in my career I've actually committed on the spot.
Wow.
And he's turned out to be an incredible entrepreneur. His company was called Superstats at the time. It ended up becoming Omniture, and they were sold. Omniture. They were sold for nearly $2 billion to Adobe.
Of course.
So Josh James now, I'm also an investor in Domo, which is a public company.
Yeah.
And he was actually one of my first investments. So I got really lucky early on. I thought it was really smart.
What were you doing? Putting 10, 20K to work each time?
I think in that investment, it was 50K actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is back when there were $2, $3 million valuations, $5 million valuations?
It was sub 10. I don't remember what it was, but it was sub 10.
And the number of angel investors in Silicon Valley?
At that time?
Yeah.
Very few.
Dozens?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, Ron, I knew Ron. He was my first investor. I was running a company called Ad Auction. He was my first investor. So I was.
And at that time, what was Ron Conway like? He was running around the valley writing with his little $10 million fund, writing $25,000 checks?
Yeah.
50K checks?
He was writing small checks, but we actually put together a investment that was around $1 million. I don't recall how much was his part of that. But I was in the same investment class as Google.
Wow.
So we were in the same fund.
Yeah.
So we used to have these parties at his house and invite all the founders.
Right.
And Larry and Sergey were part of this group. I think there were 25 founders in that particular fund. And he had some of these legendary parties down in his I think he lived in Menlo Park or something like that. So that it was very there wasn't really sort of a clear sort of seed angel. It was just people with some money and not nearly as organized as it is today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now you have a fund.
Yes.
And you write slightly bigger checks.
Yep.
Tell us the range of a check size, and is there a thesis behind this fund?
Yeah, there is. So we've done advisory too. The fund actually came out of Kick Labs. It was an incubator that we started in the end of 2009. And the whole idea...
Perfect timing.
It was...
the market was collapsed. The NASDAQ was 60% off, and you decided, in your great wisdom, to start an accelerator incubator.
Yep.
Which I will say is actually great wisdom. Down markets are the best time to invest, correct?
Well, yeah, the part of being older is that you've lived through downturns.
Yes.
I got crushed in 99, 2000.
.com bust.
So you learn from that. And it took about 3 years to come back. By the end of 2003, things were coming back, right?
Okay.
And so I saw
because you also had 9/11, people don't remember. So it was a 1-2 punch.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
On American economy. You had
That's
the .com bust, which was going to take years to unravel.
Right.
But then you had 9/11 the next year, which also sent everything into a tailspin for a year.
Right.
And the wars.
So it made for some real thoughtful companies at that point. I mean, Google came out of the ashes, kind of.
Yes.
So
Amazon, Netflix, all of them.
all those, they had to endure all that.
Yeah.
So when I looked at that, and I got together my current partner, Peter Boboff, and we said, this is a perfect time to do it. But it was also at the time when social media was just getting some traction.
Yes.
So I had a lot of experience with large brands, enterprise companies, relationships from previous life. And there was a point where startups were starting to get disrupted by, or large brands were getting disrupted by startups. So how could we create a practice where we could introduce potential disruptive companies to specific brands, and start this matchmaking? It's sort of what Andreessen does as a practice today.
Yeah.
But we started doing that, 3 or 4 or 5 companies we introduce. We bring in a Best Buy, or we bring in a Target, or
with
something
the goal of getting them as customers or partners.
That's right.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so our fund actually came out of that practice, and we had, and at the time, if you remember, there was tons of space available.
Yes.
So we worked out a deal with a company who owned a building on Brannan, and they gave us 25,000 square feet for nothing.
Wow.
And all we did was we brought in startups. We took a little piece of equity, and
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, it was between 0.5% and 2%, somewhere around.
Just for giving them space and hanging out.
Exactly.
Wow.
And having them have access to our brand days.
Wow.
So one of those companies was Wish.
Wish has become a juggernaut.
They're huge.
Explain what Wish is. Is it Pinterest plus Amazon? Is that how I should think about it?
It's
Target plus Pinterest?
It's really a very elegant shopping app for inexpensive things coming from China.
Okay.
So, you can go on Wish and you can buy anything. Matter of fact, there's some videos, if you go there, people shopping for wedding dresses under $30 on Wish. So you can get anything. Matter of fact, I brought some Wish socks for you today.
Awesome.
I buy tons of socks. No wedding dress, but socks.
Oh, okay.
So the interesting...
I guess what I do in my private life is my business.
That's a whole different show.
Can you imagine? I wonder if there is a group of people who cross-dress in wedding dresses for fun.
I guarantee
who are not in punk rock bands. That's a pretty punk rock thing to do. Actually, that was it. Courtney Love used to wear a wedding dress, I think, in some of her things.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we got off track, but I think I'll bring it back.
I'll try to bring you back. We were talking about your Kickstarter, lads. We were talking about Wish.
Yeah.
Wish is amazing because you can buy stuff from China. It's awesome.
So this was a classic sort of massive pivot. So when Peter, the CEO, came in to Kick Labs, he was checking out the space like, what is this? Blah, blah, blah. I got this startup, and it was just basically him, and he had 2 founders at the time. And he had been basically running technology for Google in Korea and had an idea of how he could create sort of a better Google AdWords and AdSense. And he sort of one day put that taxonomy on the whiteboard. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. If you can pull any of that off, that would be awesome. And I told my partner, I don't care what we do, we're going to fund this guy. And Peter's been an incredible founder, but they took all of that all the technology and they overlaid it on e-commerce instead of ads.
Yeah.
And that's where it is today. So they do phenomenal amount of volume. They do billions of transactions, and it's just growing like crazy.
Amazing. When we get back, the impact of AngelList. You're an investor. It's been extraordinary what impact AngelList has had. I want to hear your thoughts on AngelList and then go through a couple of your other greatest hits, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Snapchat specifically when we get back on Angel, the podcast. One of the most important things for you to do for your startup is to have insurance. I don't know if you've been through this before, but I have. Errors and omission and cyber. That means if you get attacked and you get hacked, which everybody's unfortunately experiencing these days. And D&O. You've heard D&O. You've heard your investors throw it around. What does it mean? Directors and officers. That means the people on your board are covered in case the company gets sued because of a cyber attack or an HR issue, whatever it is. You need to have errors and omissions. You need to have D&O and you need to have cyber. Well, the Embroker Startup Program helps startups do this, and I went through it with the founder. It is so easy. You just take a couple of minutes, you answer a couple of very easy to do questions, and you will get your insurance priced out immediately. You'll have access to 50 of the top carriers and Embroker's proprietary insurance policies. It's white glove service from expert brokers who specialize in high growth companies like yours. So you can instantly build your custom insurance right now, and you'll save up to 20% if you go to Embroker.com/angel. That's EM and then the word broker, EMBROKER.com/angel. Embroker.com/angel. You need to get all this stuff dialed in. You need to do it right. Maybe you've been growing fast and you didn't get this set up because you're too busy. Well, it's time to take a pause and go to Embroker.com/angel. Get that cyber insurance going. Hey, they even do things like cannabis and other insurance. Go to their website. You'll see it all at Embroker.com/angel. Instantly buy that D&O, E&O, cyber coverage in minutes, not weeks. That's the big thing here. Not only are you going to save money with Embroker, but you're going to save weeks and months of nonsense waiting for brokers to call you back and give you a quote, and they probably bait and switch you and charge you too much. So use Embroker.com/angel. All right, welcome back to Angel Podcast. I was just confessing my desire to wear a wedding dress in my spare time. And it turns out San Francisco does not disappoint, ever. When it comes to a particular unique pursuit in the world, San Francisco will never disappoint. Here we are, the brides of March. Not the Ides of March, but the brides of March. This is a San Francisco thing? And
where
I see here, this is just a random picture from the interwebs.
Wow.
A large group of people wearing beautiful wedding dresses, including a number of handsome, if I may say so myself, men. So I know what I'm doing.
I don't know if there's one from Wish on there, but hopefully.
How did I miss this? This
is a whole other show.
It's a whole other show.
Yeah.
This week in Unique Pastimes. All right, back to our guest, Chris Redlitz. Yep. He is Chris Redlitz on the Twitter, Chris Redlitz, managing partner at Transmedia Capital from 2008 to present. And of course, Kick Labs, 2009 to 2014. What I was struck by in your story about Kick Labs is one of my core thesis of how to be successful in life is to take action, especially when other people are not. The podcast here, 10 years of doing the podcast, is an example of that. Like, nobody really wanted to do podcasting. It was a waste of time. And here we are 10 years later. This thing is a juggernaut and really is a big, major part of why I've been successful as an investor. Just taking the time to create an office space for people to get together and match them with brands. Simple, easy peasy idea led to all of this activity, which then led to amazing investments, didn't it?
Yes, that's right. Well, I think it's identifying a need, as you do with any startup. But also, to me, it was pretty natural. Like, I had these relationships. I saw this disruption happening. How can you match make and sort of satisfy both needs?
You productized it.
Yeah, but it didn't seem that unusual.
Most things that are impactful in life are very simple.
Right. So we started doing that, and it really, to allow or to facilitate potentially a first customer is a big deal when you're a startup.
Yeah.
Getting that dialogue going. And, also with big brands who are recognizing disruption happening, they appreciate that as well.
Yes.
So I think it was something that just naturally worked, and I think timing was really good.
Hey, AngelList has had a gigantic impact. In fact, I started my syndicate career on AngelList. I do it independently now.
Yep.
No hard feelings there. I just wanted to give the share of my carry to my team as opposed to Naval's, which makes sense. And he always saw it as a farm league. When did you meet AngelList? And I wonder what was your reaction to it? Because when Naval started telling me his plans, my eyes popped out of my head and I was like, syndicate? What's that? And he basically taught me. And boy, has this had a Ron Conway-like impact on the industry, huh?
Well, it didn't start out with syndicates. They came in it was one of those rare cases where we didn't take equity, but we gave them free space. So it was Nivi and Naval, just the two of them. And
Venture Hacks, they called it originally?
Venture Hacks.
It was like a blog.
It was a blog. Yeah. So
with introductions.
Yeah, it was basically, it took Venture Hacks and sort of created a platform to bring investors. So it was really hard to get on. There was only, I think it was like 20 investors, and they vetted companies before they came in. So it was a deal flow platform initially for vetted investors. And then it started growing in popularity, not only in investors, but bringing in more startups to get exposed to that. And then it's really now today, there's a lot of diverse benefit there. There's huge hiring opportunities. A lot of people hire off, AngelList. The syndicate has really exploded.
Yeah.
So it's really more about syndicates and finding talent today than finding individual deals.
Right.
But that's really how it started. And Naval is he's a brilliant guy, super thoughtful.
But he's kind of disengaged now. He's just chairman. He said he's taking a year off to be a philosopher. He's got a new pod out. It's great.
Well, he's a very thoughtful guy, so I'm not surprised. But that's really how it evolved. And honestly, I'm sure they had no idea it would become what it is today.
Yeah.
But as you said, simple things, a very simple thing, matchmaking quality investors of quality companies and putting them together. And that's really how it started.
Yeah, it's so interesting. At that time, I was inviting investors to Open Angel Forum 10 years ago. Just saying, if you're an investor, I have like 5 or 6 friends who are going to show their company. And then Naval was coming to that, and he did AngelList. And I was like, well, I guess there's no need for Open Angel Forum. You're going to find like hundreds of angel investors. Stop doing Open Angel Forum. I was like, let's just do this on AngelList. It's easier. And you know what the first syndicate deal was on AngelList?
I don't.
Com.com.
Was it really?
And it also is now they may have done syndicates before that, but I was the first syndicate because Naval shared it with me and said, check this out. He had told people he was building it and productizing it. And on the page, when he showed it to me, I tweeted it. Because it said tweet here. And then he said, oh, no, we're announcing it in TechCrunch in 2 weeks. Don't tweet it. And I was like, oh, well, 40 people have signed up and I have $100,000 per deal or $150,000 per deal. I was like, all right, well, whatever. This is pretty hilarious. Great. And then the first deal we did, I had Alex from Com on my podcast.
Wow.
And nobody would invest in Com. And I was like, that makes total sense to me that it will work. Sure. Meditation on your iPod.
I use it all the time.
Exactly. And we invested $378,000 at a $5 million valuation. It's a $60 or $70 million position now.
There you go.
And you know what the founder said to me? We would not be here if you hadn't made that investment because nobody wanted to invest at the time because nobody believed in it.
Yep.
What do you think it takes to be a great seed early stage investor? When you look back on your career and you look at these great wins, what did you do to hit this many? Because, you hit 1 or 2, it's obviously there could be luck. But once you start hitting 3, 4, 5 winners, it's not luck anymore. So how did you build this consistency of, hey, you've done over 50 investments, but I'm looking here at 6 or 7 that are unicorns? That's a pretty high hit rate.
Yeah, I've been involved in 92 companies, actually. Some were only advisory, some were personal investments, some were through the fund, and some sidecars.
Explain what advisory is, because I get a lot of people who don't have money, they're broke, but they want to be advisors. Explain how that works.
Well, it's a good way to add value in very specific domain that you have information about or leverage your network to help a company move forward.
Got it.
If you don't have a lot of money and you want to start building reputation, you can be an effective advisor and help CEO with operational questions, help the sales close business. There's a variety of ways you can be helpful to a company, but it's a good way to actually build reputation in a community. And that I did a lot of that early on.
Trading your knowledge, experience for what, half point, a point? What was your standard deal?
Yeah, half point, a point. Yeah, around there. I was with Omniture. I was not only an investor, but an advisor also.
So you made more from the advisorship than the investment? Equal?
No, not necessarily, but they were both significant. And
I used to do this myself. I used to put in $25K and then get some advisor shares.
Right.
And I forgot that I had them in a couple of different deals. And then they told me, and I was like, oh my God, it's $1 million. Oh my God, it's $250,000. Right. It's crazy.
Yep. Yeah, that's the case.
Good work if you can get it.
Yeah, exactly. But you can't be an advisor and not add value. I think there are some companies that want to have people for a marquee say he's an advisor or she's an advisor, but they're there just because they're known.
Name and reputation. You're trading your name and reputation for a little bit of equity, but you're kind of like giving me a face that it looks a little icky. You don't like it?
Well, I just think, if you're going to be an advisor, you have to be engaged.
Yeah. So when you see somebody doing that to you, it's like, I wouldn't do that.
Well, I'm not dissing somebody who's going to be an advisor just to have their brand in the company. That's their choice.
Yeah.
It was my strategy that I had to grind.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody knew me. I had to grind and prove myself, right?
Okay.
And that's really how I've operated. And what I wanted, because I came from an operational background, ran companies, successes, failures, been beat up a lot. And you can share a lot of that wisdom with companies. So when we look at investing, we want to be very honest, straightforward, and approachable and accessible. So when I was running companies, venture capital to me was sort of a necessary evil. And there were a lot of VCs that said, call me if you need help, but there was really no specific ask. Or when you asked, they were maybe there, then maybe they weren't. So what we decided was when we invest, we actually want to be involved in the process. So we do a kickoff with every company. We sit down with 3 or 4 hours or whatever time necessary, go through their product roadmap and their business roadmap. And we say, we're going to be accountable here, here, and here. And hold us to that. And that's really important. Like, okay, you're part of our team, right?
Right.
And also we don't take board seats as a rule, because I really feel that when I was running a company, I wanted someone like me that I could call. And I get those calls.
Yeah.
And I'm really honest with them. I sort of say, instead of founder friendly, founder empathetic.
Yeah.
So I understand what they're doing, and I'll give them the straight feedback. And I think that's appreciated.
Yeah. It's very hard to get candid, to be candid with your investors, because the truth is, many of these companies are on the brink of insolvency from years 1 through 10. Like, even if they're successful, the valuation's going up, the number of employees is going up.
Yep.
There's existential risk everywhere.
Yep.
There's operational risk everywhere.
Yep.
There's imposter syndrome. There's people do stupid stuff that could, scuttle the whole venture. And having an investor you can be candid with is just invaluable.
I think so. And I think that's what's appreciated. Our best recommendation leads and deal flow comes from our founders. I think that's the best way to find great entrepreneurs and deals is from previous investments.
How do you nurture that? Do you tell your founders, like, hey, I'm on the look? Or do you email them once in a while and say, seen anything interesting?
Yeah. I mean, part of what I really tried to do is keep a network going. I think you need to communicate with people when you're not in need and they're not in need, and keep conversations going. So I think that's part of it. People know that we'll treat their founders right, so they feel comfortable introducing them to us. So our deal flow comes primarily from, founders or ex-founders, and other venture groups that we work with. Never from over the transom at all. It has to come really recommended. It's just the only way to do it. As you know, there's just the amount of noise in the marketplace. You just can't deal with it unless it comes recommended.
How do you make a decision about pro rata? And how important is pro rata? I get this question a lot, and we're here to educate some other people who are just starting investing. What's your best advice the advice you would give to friends or a family member who said, I'm getting into angel investing, I'm getting into seed investing around pro rata?
Well, I think you have to have resources to do that. So certainly with a fund, we do have the resources to participate in pro rata. Many times, especially with, if it's not an equity deal, that's not naturally built in the documents. So we do side letters a lot, where in many cases, we'll put a dollar amount on that as well. So if we put a lot of work in with a company, I look at it as performance rights. Like if I perform, I should have the right to invest.
Right.
And most founders don't realize they have a lot of leverage with investors. Like you'll get some investors who come in and want to take the whole round.
Yeah.
And sometimes you say, no, time out. These guys have helped me. I'm gonna leave room for them whenever. Josh James was great at that. In both of his companies, I've participated almost throughout. And I think that's really important for people who put that money in early and put that effort in early.
Yeah.
And the difference today, as it was 20 years ago, first money in wasn't necessarily smart money.
No.
Today, first money in needs to be smart money. You need to take money from people who can add value from day one, but they should be rewarded by at least allowing for them to invest in the future.
We had this happen a lot in our accelerator because we, like you, realized accelerating companies and having an incubator / accelerator is a great way to kind of work deeply with a company, get to know them, get to know the character of the individuals. And then we're finding our best companies would raise money from somebody who would say, yeah, I'll give you the money if you get everybody to sign off on not having their pro rata.
Yeah.
And then I'm in the uncomfortable position of saying, I'm going to scuttle the deal. You've had this happen?
Yeah, sure. Sometimes there's no way around it. You just have to deal with it. Yeah. I mean, some cases you get a VC will come in and it'll mark the company up pretty significantly. So you're like, oh, I just got 5X.
So maybe I'll step out of the way.
Exactly.
It's a courteous thing to do. But if you are trying to maximize returns for your LPs and you're trying to compete, I now have taken the position. I talk to my founders and I say, at some point, the following scenario may happen. An investor offers you to screw us in order to maximize their ownership percentage. If that happens, you should know that the next person they would be willing to screw is you.
Right.
So we need to be a united front, and you need to tell them, I respect the people who helped me get here, and I want you to respect them as well, just like I will respect you when the Series B and C money comes in.
Yep.
And boy, has that changed everything for me.
It's fair.
I don't have this happen anymore.
Yeah.
But you have to know that, right? And I didn't know that as an angel investor early on. If I had pro rata or if I didn't, what?
Well, you're also the Jason now.
Please. Do you have a thesis? Do you have a theme?
Yeah.
What are they? And how do you determine your theme?
Yeah. I mean, in the fund, we really look at, we do a lot of software service. We do a lot of SaaS, enterprise SaaS, marketplaces. We like creating dependencies that turn into annuity revenue. And that's really what SaaS is.
Dependencies?
That turn into annuity revenue.
Give me an example. Yeah.
Well, Salesforce is a great example.
Okay.
So Salesforce is a horizontal SaaS. Everybody uses Salesforce.
Yeah.
It's embedded. If you try to rip Salesforce out, it's
a disaster.
It's because it has data and everybody
it's sticky.
It's annuity. It's going. It's
just keeps paying you every year after year.
You can print that.
Yeah.
Omniture was like that.
Sure. No, I remember at AOL. No offense to Omniture, but oh my Lord, we just were using Google Analytics in the early days with Weblogs, Inc. and Engadget, and they tried to force Omniture on it, and I stopped it.
Yeah.
So I was like, this thing is so complicated, I can't figure it out.
Right.
Because at that point, it had become like a monolithic giant thing, and I was like, I'm only using Google Analytics now. Like, there's a big controversy. But
that's what it is.
Yeah.
So those are longer term wins, but they make great public companies. So that's,
they make great public companies. Why?
Because it's predictable annuity, incremental growth revenue.
Got it. So if you have a Microsoft franchise with Office, if you're Google with the Google search franchise, I guess is not like that.
No, I wouldn't say that's
Netflix is like that.
Sure.
Subscription-based businesses are kind of like that.
I mean, Salesforce is the classic.
Yeah. You can't rip it out. It's just too complex.
Yeah. So it just, and then the challenge is then how do you expand that? Salesforce obviously created a whole platform on top of that where people building on that and whatnot. So those are companies we really like. We do have a private fund that Peter and I have called Transmedia Ventures, where we invest very early. We invest as things outside of our investment thesis in the fund, and it's mostly about people. So
what size checks are those?
Those are 50 to 100K.
So you make these really feeler-sized bets and people you have a feeling about.
That's right.
What does Chris Redlitz like in an entrepreneur? What are the characteristics that you like to see?
It sounds kind of corny, but I have 3 Ps.
Okay.
Passion, presence, and perseverance.
I was going to say persistence is in there.
Yeah. So it's
passion.
Kind of passion for sure.
We understand that.
Yeah. Passion is
super important.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because you doing a startup is painful. You have to live it.
Yeah.
If you're doing it sort of as a job, forget it. It has to be sort of inside of you, Yeah.
It's like being a Navy SEAL. You're like, I'm going to go to the Navy SEAL training and have them put a hose down my throat while I've got my hands tied behind my back. Not pleasant unless you aspire to be a Navy SEAL. Like, I don't want to be in the ocean. I don't like cold water. Yeah. I'm not going to sit in the ocean overnight holding a giant log. You ever see these videos of these maniacs?
Sure, yeah.
I watch this thing.
I worked for a Navy SEAL.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm watching these Navy SEAL maniacs, man. Yeah. I love these guys and gals. I got some respect for them.
Yeah.
But I am not going in the surf with 8 other people and holding a tree. They have a tree on their shoulder.
Yep.
And they have to stay in the surf for 12 hours or something. Their lips are blue, Chris.
I know. So there's a book you should read. David Goggins wrote a book called Can't Hurt Me.
Get me that guy, Jackie. Where's David Goggins on this? I love that guy. I follow him on the Twitter, man.
So you know Jesse Itzler? Do you know Jesse?
Who's that?
He started Marquis Jets. And He owns part of the Atlantic Hawks.
Okay.
So he's got a book called Living with a SEAL. You should read that first, actually.
Oh, yes. I saw this on like CBS this morning or something.
Yeah.
He was a fat bastard who decided he didn't want to be a fat bastard anymore. And he hired David Goggins to wake him up at 5 a.m. every day. Is that the story?
Yes, for 30 days.
And he wrote a book about it.
That's right. And then David now has his own book. But Living with
that
SEAL,
guy's impressive. Living with the SEAL is good?
Crazy. Yeah, I love Living with the SEAL because Jesse's a quirky, interesting, smart, energetic guy. And it's this journey that he goes through for 30 days. And basically the deal was that Goggins said, I'll come live with you. And you have to do whatever I say, whenever I say it.
Oh my
Like
Lord.
he could wake him up at 2 a.m. and go out and run in the middle of the snow and jump in an icy pond or whatever. And he had to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's building character.
That's character and
Yeah.
perseverance. Yeah, for sure. So you have that
Yeah,
passion.
Passion, presence. I say presence because you have to be a leader. You have to attract talent and you have to lead talent.
Got it.
And part of that is having a presence.
Yeah.
And you don't find that always in founders. Sometimes it's not sort of that outgoing thing, but that it's that inner presence. But I think it's super important. And
so it doesn't necessarily mean extrovert.
Not
you
necessarily.
could be an introvert. Presence means the smart people in the room are going to listen to what you're saying.
Yes.
And you can lead them.
That's right. You don't have to be the most extroverted person.
No.
But it's a matter of confidence. Like, do I know what I'm doing? And people trust me when why are they going to come work for me?
Naval's an introvert, I think, but he has presence. Like when he speaks.
Yeah, he has presence. He's just very low key, but he has presence.
Yeah,
for sure.
no, when he speaks, like his new podcast is amazing. Yeah. Like it's not even a podcast. He just talks for 4 minutes.
Right. Somebody
asked him, you did this tweet. It got 8,000 retweets because his tweets are all like these philosophical thought bombs.
Yeah,
it's like speaking. It's like Yoda. He's like this. He's like the angel investor Yoda.
He'll do 20 in a row.
They don't do 20 in a row, but his whole podcast is like literally a host is like, so you wrote the following, and then he explains it in 5 minutes. Podcast over.
Yeah,
it's incredible. Yeah. It's a really good podcast. But
sort
that
of
makes total sense.
I think it was chapter 5 in your book. It was one word.
It was one word. It's like to be a world-class angel investor, you need to be in Silicon Valley. I was like, yes.
Okay.
I mean, just if you want to hit the highest alpha deals, they rarely happen, as I say in the book, outside of this vicinity. They happen in China, they happen in India, they happen in Stockholm, and they do happen in other cities.
Yeah, I would say Utah is kind of one of those.
Oh, yes, it is.
So
Explain the Mormon-Utah connection.
Well, again, Josh James was Mormon from Utah, and then I met several others. Matter of fact, the reason we're in Snap is because I invested in Scan. Garrett G was the founder. He was going to BYU. Interesting story with this show's perseverance. So that's the last P. Yeah. Garrett is the epitome of that. So he came out. He was playing soccer for the University of Utah, and he was raising money to do a startup. So he would fly out, take meetings, and fly back. Same day, so we wouldn't miss practice. Wow. He did that 28 times when he was raising his round. And that's a dude you want to invest in. Yeah. And he built a scan app, and there were already 100 of them. Yep. But he just built a beautiful, elegant app. And when Evan was looking for an app, scanning app, that was the best one. Hilarious. I actually got them on Shark Tank, which didn't hurt. Yeah. But they had 100 million downloads of that app. So Evan came and boom, the negotiation, I think, took 2 weeks and it was done. Wow. Yeah.
That is huge.
But the work ethic from the folks in that community is unparalleled.
I have a number of, I kind of say it like jokingly, like the Mormon thing. I have 3 or 4 investments from the Salt Lake area, and they're all Mormons.
Yep.
And I asked one of them why he thinks this is. It was a thing. He says, high expectation culture. And I said, what's that? He said, well, we do this thing, which is when you're on your mission, everybody is has high expectations of each other.
Yep.
If you don't hit the notes, the community tells you.
Yep.
That's unique in the world.
Sure.
Especially this world where everybody is totally fine with people being obese, morbidly obese, okay with everybody being stupid or rewarding stupidity. If you came in and you were 100 pounds overweight and you were watching reality television, they'd be like, you're wasting your life. You're killing yourself with obesity. And they'd just be candid with you about your lack of performance. And they do a thing when you're on your mission. They call it a library or an audit or something. Not like audit in a creepy way, but inventory, I think is what they call it. Are you Mormon?
No.
No. So anyway, if you and I were on our mission, before we go out and knock on doors to convert people to Christ, we would give each other an inventory of how we were doing. So it's almost like this, Navy SEALs thing, like living with the SEAL, where you're going to get your candid feedback on how you're doing, whether it's from a Navy SEAL or from your other person. Sure. And everybody trends in the right direction.
Yeah. And think about it. You go on these missions in the middle of nowhere and it's you have to do this, right?
Yeah, knock on doors.
Yeah. I mean, that builds entrepreneurship.
Forget it. I can try to convince you that Christ, thousands of years ago, was so awesome that he raised himself from the dead and that you should dedicate your life to him.
Right.
That's a hard sell. Me selling you Slack or Salesforce, slightly easier.
A little bit.
Than selling you Christ.
A little bit.
For those of you who have bought into Christ.
Nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with that. I grew up Catholic.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me, what is something that the venture community, the investment community needs to do a better job of as we wrap up here?
Well, that's
a horror story. VCs behaving horribly.
You want me to pick one of those?
One or both. I'm giving it to you some options as we round third base here in this hour-long conversation of which one you want to answer, Chris. Worst behavior by a VC. You can take out their name. You can take out the company and you can make an amalgamation or a composite of it, or just things that the venture community needs to do better as we self-reflect.
Can I say something before that?
Yes.
Do you remember when you and I met?
No.
Okay. So I was working with Scott Rafer and the team at Feedster.
Oh my God, I do remember now. I don't remember when we met, but I do remember Feedster.
So you called me and you were pitching weblogs to do embedded in RSS feeds.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes.
You may not remember the conversation.
I don't remember the conversation, but I remember RSS feeds, yes.
So you were pitching me and I got off the phone and I told Beverly, I said, this guy's either brilliant or crazy.
Correct.
and that was back in 2005, I think it was. So I think you're not crazy.
No.
But I do appreciate where you've taken that from then until now, because I thought, oh, this dude's kind of
Could go either way.
Yeah, he's kind of like arrogant, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You're one of the most genuine, giving guys that I know. And I want to say that before we end.
Okay.
So segue
Can we book Chris again? I think you have to be the first person to be in 2 episodes in one season. I like this. Okay, keep going. Now.
So venture horror stories.
Yeah.
Without giving a company away, that's tough.
It's make a composite. If it's an enterprise, make it consumer. If it's consumer, make it enterprise. Everybody, I just tricked him. Go ahead.
I think there was maybe this misconception at the time, and this was years ago, where a startup founder isn't necessarily a public company founder. And I had a situation where this company was on its way to becoming a public company, and they decided that I wasn't the right guy. They brought in a different person to run the company, and it ended up being a disaster. The company never went public. And it's really tragic for all of those involved. There were other circumstances involved, but,
it's such a mistake.
I think
build
it's one of those,
around the founder.
Well, I think that's build around the founder, but also don't try to run the company. If the company gets to where it is, there's got to be something being done right if it's getting to the point where it could be a public company, right?
Yeah, this is something crazy. People look at success and they're like, you know what? Time to change. It's like, wait a second. If this person is putting up numbers and now you want to change it?
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
If it's sort of like got us here.
It's sort of like pitch counts in baseball. Like he's already hit 100 pitches. He needs to come out. Well, he might just leave him in the game, for God's sakes.
Yeah, let's see.
Back in the day, Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale used to pitch, full games, like the complete game.
Yeah.
Let people have their complete game. I think that's that was really made a mark on me for sure. Yeah. And I think about that a lot today. I
like it. Let the player complete the game.
I think so.
Wow. What a way to end it. Okay. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Follow Chris Redlitz. If you've got a great company, this is as good as it gets. This is the guy you want on your team. And if you have a little bit of extra cheddar laying around, donate to The Last Mile. Do a Google search. I'm sure on the Last Mile website, there's a donate button somewhere.
There is thelastmile.org.
thelastmile.org.
Thelastmile.org at TLM.
At TLM.
On the Twitter.
At TLM. Last Mile.
At
Follow
TLM,
it.
the acronym.
Give a donation if you can. Or give your time, whichever you have handy. Okay. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.